Hey, what's up? It's Kit, time for another video, and today we are talking about trolling lures. Trolling, I love trolling. Ever since I was a kid, it's been something that's always captivated me. So over the years, also, I have built up quite a collection and some experience with trolling. Now, trolling in the Philippines is kind of different. The Philippines is where I grew up and, spent most of my fishing time while I was growing up. And I found that there were quite a few things that are different, but some things were constant anywhere you go. First constant is that different fish require you to target different depths. Speed is something that is very important when you're trolling, and also important for whatever kind of fish that you're chasing after. So we're gonna break all of that down, but first, for those guys that are in a hurry, the next 5 minutes is gonna be for you guys. Okay, so arranged here from the shallowest to the deepest runner are practically four of the best lures that I have in my arsenal. Okay, so the variance, of course, is that some of these lures have bigger or smaller sizes, with the exception of the Xtreme, because it only comes in one size right now. So the Xtreme is a shallow runner and it goes real fast. So for you guys that have several spots to cover in one day, it's a very good lure for you to use when you're hopping from one spot to another, and instead of actually bringing up all the lures, you could just have one or two of these trolled behind the boat, and when you move from one spot to another, you're still fishing. Rapala CD14. The 14 size is my favorite, although it's from, I believe, from CD9 all the way up to 22. The CD14 is probably the best all-around lure ever since I was a kid. So this is kind of like an offshore standard right here. The 14 size is my favorite because I believe that you can catch anything with it, inshore or offshore. The 18 is a close second. 22 for me is something that you would use when there's monsters. You're fishing around places where there's monsters. The 22 would be it. And the 9 I still use. I love using it, especially when the fish are biting on some small stuff. So Rapala CD Magnum, a standard for me. Always have a lot of them in my box and I don't run out. The new standard for these days. So this is probably something that dives deeper than, or these types dive deeper than the CD Magnums. The CD Magnums, really, the biggest advantage they have up until now is the metal lip, which gives you the flash. So these guys don't have the flash, but they have the flash in the body. Okay, so for general use, clear water, and when you're going faster. Okay, so these are the guys. So I mean, the CD Magnums, they're great and everything. The biggest problem they have is the lip. When it goes out of kilter, you have to tune it, and if you don't know how to tune it, it does take a while. Whereas these guys are easier to use. So big difference there. Nothing much to say about these lures except that they work. I mean, you just toss them out at the back of the boat and they start working. It's that easy, and they're almost worry free. Good thing to note about these guys is that the 30 and the 40 have the same body size but different lip size, so the 40 goes down deeper. The Storm DTH series, there's two sizes. There's a smaller one and this is the 14. Sorry, the DTH15. Works great. Works even in slow speed. And this has become one of my favorites since moving here in Dubai, especially the bigger one, because it has caught me a lot of fish. It still produces for a lot of people. It's a constant producer. each year a lot of fish here are actually caught by this lure, and this is literally a trolling standby. Now what I like about the 15 is that it's very predictable. Okay, so the action is predictable, and the depth. Okay, so you could easily, I believe the way it dives and how it dives and how deep it dives is just perfect for the kayak, and it's not too heavy, whereas sometimes the 30s and the 40s for Rapala X-Rap Magnums are actually a bit heavy, especially when you're just paddling and not pedaling. But these guys work well. They're not too heavy on the shoulders when you're pedaling. Okay, so that's 5 minutes for you guys. We're gonna take a little bit of a deep dive when we come back. Alright, so for you guys that are still around, I'm gonna talk a little bit about another lure which I have found to be very, very useful on the kayak. So this is the MaxRap, and what I discovered about this, especially if you're getting something like this, the colors, the natural colored ones, they're actually a very close approximation of ballyhoo, and you could be anywhere. You could be in the Philippines, you could be in Asia, you could be in the States. Well, no, not in the States. These guys are not for sale there. I don't know if maybe Rapala would reintroduce them, but Europe, Asia, here in the Middle East, they're sold. So what I've found is that the size 15 and the 17 are not only fantastic casting lures, but they're also fantastic trolling lures. Now I am going to zoom in, and you can see from the color there. Okay, so look at the flash. So I mean, there are a lot of colors out there, and most of them work. It depends on water clarity or what you're trying to achieve with them, really. But MaxRaps, they're very easy to use. You basically just cast them and reel them. So on a kayak where you paddle either on a straight line or a semi-straight line, these work. Okay, so the swimming action, the kind of roll that it has, and the weight transfer system also kind of has that rattle, so it has a lot going for it. Okay, now the biggest thing that I do with this when I'm trolling it is to ensure that I have wire. And see, I have this. Now you might say that the it's kind of strange. Alright, so this is wire and this is mono, and believe it or not, this is the length of wire I use if I do use wire. So I have instructions on how to make this, and I'm probably going to show you how I made this one in particular. I'm probably gonna speed it up, and it's layered. We'll layer it on the screen right now, but as you can see, it's a short length of wire, very, very short length. And trust me, even if a massive kingfish would eat this from the back, it's not gonna reach the wire. It's just kind of impossible. That's why, for me, I actually done away with really long lengths and snaps, swivels, and all of that. Just use this, and you could still use that. That's fine. I mean, it's really up to you. But for me, this short, I don't know, 4-inch section of wire just does it for me. Okay, and the good thing about this is that if I'm trolling this and there's some fish boiling in front, all I have to do is just reel it in. Okay, and this is FG or PR'd to my braid, and I could just cast it forward, and it's a great casting lure. So what can I say? Now other lures, of course, the biggest advantage of this is that the lip is quite small and it doesn't dive deep, so when I reel in really fast, I can get it up as fast as possible. It's not so heavy in the rod, and I use a casting rod to actually troll with. On a kayak, it's just possible. Now compared to something like this that dives and has a lot of resistance, it takes considerably longer time to actually bring it in. Now mostly I use high-speed reels, and when I'm on a kayak I have 2 dedicated casting rods or casting setups specifically for that. So basically what I do is, when this is trolled, if I'm not hit and there's a boil in front of me, reel it in, and guess what? I have a casting rod, you know, perfectly balanced, cast it straight forward, most likely catch the fish. So it doesn't take a long time to reel it in, and very easy to cast. So trolling this is a big plus, because you could actually do 2 things as opposed to just 1. So this leader is quite special because you can just pop the lure out and change it with another one. Okay, like that, and it's so easy because you just hold the wire and basically just turn the lure, and it just goes in. I have very detailed instructions on how to do this. I'm probably gonna link it on this video or in the description, but that wire leader is gold. Okay, now I have to say, wire leaders in general, the thicker your leader is, the more it's gonna parachute when the lure dives, if it's a diving lure, so the more resistance it creates. So if you're using a very thick leader, or thick leader for that matter, okay, keep it short. Okay, so the less resistance it would create. Now if you choose a thinner leader, it would make the lure dive deeper. Okay, so it's as simple as that. So if you use a thin leader and a short thin leader, the lures will dive down deeper. Now there are soft mono, there's soft mono, there is stiff mono, and there's fluorocarbon. Okay, mono floats, fluorocarbon sinks. So you'll get a bit more depth when you're trolling with fluorocarbon, especially if it's thinner, just because it sinks. Okay, now and also generally fluorocarbons, by the way, are thinner than mono. So yeah, the same type, like take for example you have 40 and you take 40-pound mono, you compare them, mono is gonna be thicker than fluorocarbon. Okay, now when you're trolling, speed is very important. Speed is probably what makes or breaks each lure, and sometimes you have to go faster, or sometimes you have to go slower for the fish to bite. It really depends on the fish that day. The leaders, when they go down, they actually create bubbles. Okay, so this particular leader right here would probably catch some air, and it'll look kind of like they're rooster tailing in the water. Each time you put something like a hardware, a swivel here or a swivel here with a snap, that creates bubbles, and sometimes the fish actually bite that bubble. And this is the reason why sometimes even if you're using wire, you get cut off, because the whole wire length is actually creating the bubble. Now if you keep the wire short, the lure is very close, and most likely they will go after the lure as opposed to the bubble that's created with your wire. That's something that you have to keep in mind. This rig can be modified so that you can use something similar for stranded wire, but single strand wire creates less bubbles than stranded wire, because stranded wire actually traps bubbles within the cable system, the cable, so it has like these small bubbles that get trapped there. Single strand wire doesn't have that problem, although it still creates bubbles, but it's not as much as stranded wire. Okay, so biggest tip here is that shorter wire will give you less problems. Okay, I guess that's about it. I mean, with those, I believe that you can get a head start on trolling. Really, the thing with trolling is that you have to figure out the area where you're fishing in, and sometimes the area requires you to use shallow running lures, or when the water is quite deep, you can use deep diving lures. But deep diving lures, the smaller ones, actually will give you a different depth range, so you can actually have just one lure in different sizes and cover several water columns. One of these, always have one of these, okay? Because as I explained earlier, you not only have a trolling lure, you also have a casting lure, and mind you, this is a shallow runner, so you also cover the top of the water column. And when there is fish around, or if the fish are boiling and they're boiling in front of you, these guys will get you there, because not only are they great trolling lures, they're designed to be cast far. So always have this. Now, my technique, or my thing in the past, my habit in the past, was to actually have a casting jig as a reserve. But instead of carrying only 4 rods, like take for example 2 casting rods that I could use for trolling and 2 jigging rods which I can't really cast with, I had to carry a 5th rod. And having another rod in the kayak, or even on the boat, if you don't have that much space, is really something that, you know, is not efficient, and it's another thing to worry about. So most of the time I usually troll one of these, and then I will troll with a deep diver on the other one. That way what's gonna happen is that I actually cover the water column, or 2 layers of the water column. So yeah, that's it. Alright guys, so thanks so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe, and please share to your friends that this channel or this video, whichever you find useful. And there's a lot more videos like this in my channel, so yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.